kids at a college visit, so got half the contingent here, but they, I begged them to come in and read, you know, since we were doing Unit 6 today, to have them come in and do, which question are you guys gonna do?
The climate change one.
The last one? Okay.
It's the second one.
All right.
That's not our advising book.
I've got, here, hang on, I've got some, extra copies
You
here.
two need water, you want some water? I got bottled water.
Okay.
I'm
You're
good.
fine?
Thank you,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. Anybody else need water? No? Good? Okay.
Okay, so your guys' question 2 then, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so these, yeah, this is the national, these are the national hearing questions, so, I'll read it, and then it's the same format that, you guys had at Jackson Hole, so they'll have 4-minute prepared response, which they might be off a little bit because they're missing 2 other people, so they're just reading their parts. And then we'll do like a 6-minute follow-up, so. So I'll read the question, and then their time can start, okay? On November 9th, 2016, former Vice President Al Gore wrote, "Today, I am as optimistic and resolved as ever that we will solve the climate crisis. Our collective efforts are dependent not on politics or ideology or elections, but on our commitment to each other, to the health of our planet, and to a sustainable future for all. Do you agree or disagree with Vice President Gore's position on climate change? Why or why not? What scientific evidence suggests that humans are mainly responsible for climate change? What scientific evidence suggests that natural causes are mainly responsible for climate change? What is your position on this issue, and how can you justify it? What responsibility, if any, does the U.S. government have in helping to reduce greenhouse gases in the United States and around the world? What environmental policies has the U.S. government enacted to deal with climate change, and what have been the consequences? You may begin.
One of the big questions in the climate change debate, are humans any smarter than frogs in a pot? If you put a frog in a pot and slowly turn up the heat, it won't jump out. Instead, it will enjoy a nice warm bath until it is cooked to death. We humans seem to be doing pretty much the same thing, said Jeff Goodall. Glacier Park became a national park in 1910 with over 150 glaciers. Now only 25 remain, and those will be gone within the next few decades with our current weather trends. The average temperature in the northern hemisphere has gone up 2 degrees Fahrenheit in the last century, and sea levels are projected to rise by nearly 6 feet within the same time frame. Earth has a natural warming and cooling cycle, which we are to follow this cyclical pattern. We are currently in a period of relative global warming. Studied volcanic activity and the seasonal circulation of air around the globe are the cause for this systematic change. However, the greenhouse gas levels and the global temperature have broken down this natural cycle. The greater the general emissions, the greater the temperature increase. With humans emitting an unprecedented rate of chemicals into the atmosphere due to increasing industrialization, we are living in a world of pollution. It is undeniable that the chemicals we are putting into our air, water, and world have an impact on the overall environment. The fact that 22 million people in Beijing are forced to put masks on their children before they go outside, and that there are millions of people living within feet of the rising sea level, and that drought is claiming thousands of lives by the day should be enough warning signs that we need to act now. They said climate change and global warming are among the most contentious subjects in today's society, but the scientific evidence cannot be more clear. Our planet is changing for the worse, and we are approaching a line that, if crossed, will only lead us down a path of continued destruction. It is imperative that we as a species take responsibility for our actions and work together to solve this issue.
In recent decades, this has become more apparent for the U.S. government, leader of the commercial world. In 1970, the U.S. government created the Environmental Protection Agency to monitor and protect monitor and protect America's environmental impact. The Clean Air Act, smog tests on vehicles, industry standards on pollution admittances, and the Clean Water Act and water treatment regulations have prevented thousands of deaths and illnesses among the American people. Ozone is the Earth's natural protection layer, but it was noticeably decreasing in the 1980s. The Montreal Protocol was signed internationally to limit the use of harmful chlorofluorocarbon compounds and was successful in protecting the ozone layer, and some recuperation has been achieved. All of these regulatory standards have left a positive impact on our domestic environment, if only reduction of carbon and methane emissions were as simple. Internationally, the United States uses political influence in response of drastic climate change. In April of 2016, 196 nations signed the Paris Agreement to transition to an environmental friendly world. Governments can sign papers, make claims, and enact laws, but true change comes not just through democracy, but through the citizens and their control over the market. When citizens of the world are aware of and educated about the causes and effects of their changing environment, they will be able to adjust to their own lives. This consumer shift to eco-friendly habits will in turn drive the economy and consequently the country to a more environmentally friendly outlook. 2016 was both a blessing and a curse in some regards, with the highest temperature recorded in modern history showing climate regression, but this has also pushed American consumers to steadily drop carbon-based energy and to double the solar market. This, combined with previous industrial regulation, has already begun to make a substantial impact on America's landscape, but is it enough to change the world? As the United States loses some of its leadership in the industrial and consumer markets of the world, our environment becomes even more reliant on international socio-economic effort to ensure sustainability. The current generation is provided with the opportunity to turn the world around through progressiveness and cooperation, but is in despair as greed and selfishness has never been so profound in society. Al Gore was correct that we can recover from centuries of harmful impacts on the environment through education, market change, and international cooperation. But politics strongly influence consumers' decisions, which in turn drives the global economy towards sustainability.
Okay, that's the end of the 4 minutes. And then they would be barraged with follow-up questions from the judges.
Can we ask them a few?
Yes, you can.
Oh. So what's, we're in the Midwest. What's something that you think maybe you as high school students or we as a Midwestern region can educate? Because I think being non-urban,
Yeah.
we don't hear as much
Definitely.
about this.
Mhm.
How do you think in more of a rural community can we educate our rural people more? And what can we do as individuals to help this?
Well, as you yourself said, education obviously huge. So just getting, in urban areas, there's more, maybe like information out there about it. So I guess billboards, we don't really have billboards in Spearfish or anything, but getting that out there. We're really big country people, obviously a lot of diesel trucks and cattle and everything, which we can't just get rid of that overnight. But we don't all need to be driving a big diesel truck around. So I think, as you said yourself, education, just starting to get the word out there. Of course, news sites, we all make an impact, even if you don't live in a big, smog-filled Los Angeles, even in South Dakota, we're still making an impact. Just getting the word out there. And I think there's multiple ways to do that.
And out here, we rely on cars a lot more. We
Yeah.
think just,
Public
I'll drive
transportation isn't a
4
thing.
blocks in my
Yeah.
car. In a big city, they ride a bike or walk or
Mhm.
public transportation. So around here, I think it'd be better to just walk or
Mhm.
ride a bike because we're so
Yeah.
small out here.
Mhm.
And crime is not a big issue either. So.
I'm ashamed to say that we walked, or we drove to Hugo.
I
You
just
guys
thought
drove.
about that.
We did. You
I'm
guys
sorry, I
walked it.
interrupted
Oh,
you.
no, that's fine. Is there anything that you would, think would be good policy in terms of government policies to prevent this? Is there any market-driven policies they can do to provide incentives
I
for
guess-
people to reduce emissions?
Yeah, I guess personally I'm in favor of a carbon tax. I think that would start a transition, we can't just get away with still making the emissions, it's actually gonna cost us something to do this. I just think it make companies, especially coal and stuff, being so close to Wyoming, just think about it more, by implementing that and try and drive the market towards away from that since it would cost more.
Oh, yeah, so we'll talk about carbon tax.
So you mentioned possible tax.
Mm-hmm.
What about a deduction for those that use maybe more advanced ways of preserving our environment? Let's say there's a company that has an advanced technique of limiting their pollution outputs, do you think they should get a tax deduction for that as well?
I think that would have to be taken into account, like, if that technology existed, of course, we would want to use that, so I think that if it all happened like that, of course, I think that would be taken into consideration at some point, if they weren't actually, like, emitting that in the environment, as it depends on, like, the technology they were using.
How do you get other countries to reduce their emissions? I mean, politically, it might be hard if Americans are making sacrifices or paying taxes and they see that China and India do what they want and are, it's therefore sacrifices aren't making any difference in carbon emissions.
Right. First, I think any difference makes a difference overall. As I said, 196 nations, I'm sure you guys know, signed the Paris Agreement, so I think that's definitely the beginning. China is actually reducing theirs and turning more towards like wind and solar and stuff, so they actually are kind of making a bigger move to change than America, I think, is currently. But I think just overall, just having the global community like the Paris Agreement is all coming together behind the idea that we need to do it, I think initiates action, some action on its own.
That's 6 minutes.
All right, good job.
So, there's an example of what a question looks like. I mean, it's a little different because we would have spread it out over 4 people, but so you might have got some longer answers, but I'm not sure Eli and Logan would have said anything different than what these guys said, so.
You never know what Eli.
Yeah, you never do.
So I when we were at lunch, I asked Pat about his approach to units, or if they're the same or different. So since they weren't there.
Well, you can kind of approach the curriculum any way you want. I take the whole class through all 39 lessons in the book first, just so everybody gets a little exposure to the whole broad spectrum. Plus, that gives me a chance to analyze what I think are the kids' strengths and weaknesses. And I think, some kids are inherently maybe a little bit better researcher than others, or maybe a little quicker on their feet, or maybe a little more well-spoken. Some kids are better writers, and I think you're aiming for a mix, across the spectrum in each of your units. The point is, I think everybody's got something to contribute, I sometimes when I put kids into the units to begin with, I can tell from the look on their faces that they're not sure this is going to work, but it always seems to come together, though,
Do the kids spend a lot of time on class together?
I think it depends on your unit. We've gotten together a few times for sure. More units do it differently. I think it depends on whatever you decide on, but yeah, I think definitely.
So do you have all your kids at one time? Right now, all your kids, you have several groups that will compete at the state level?
It's the whole class.
The whole class?
Yeah, it's not the unit. The whole class is going to Washington.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, so all 6 units.
Oh,
Yep.
nice, very nice.
How long do you spend going over the 39 lessons? Do you allocate 39 days?
No, I don't. I kind of, I'm a little haphazard. I kind of teach the way John was teaching earlier. We just kind of go through and we talk about the content of the lessons, and we might get through 1 lesson one day. We might cover 3 lessons in one day. It just depends on what we're talking about, and the kids want to spend a little more time in some areas than others. The ones that they find more interesting, more relevant maybe to impacting them. I have the kids do the reviewing and using the lesson questions at the end of each lesson, because I think that kind of can stimulate some thought you know, in advance of class. So they're expected to do those in advance for the next class. So I'll assign homework for those questions.
Okay.
And there's typically, kind of depends on the lesson, but there's anywhere from like 3 to 6 or 7 questions. You know, they're generally open-ended, short response questions. So I'll have the kids do those in advance of coming to class that day to cover that material.
Okay.
So, but you know, going through those lessons together, covering the material kind of helps you as a teacher, I think, evaluate what are the strengths and weaknesses of students. You know, probably the biggest thing is to try to maintain a classroom that's even, because you're naturally, and I think you should probably see this in the regular classes, probably got three or four students that are, you know, tend to dominate the conversation, and it can be a challenge sometimes to, you know, reach out, try to pull other students into the discussion. So, and some of the kids are just more prepared, you know, than others. So, but that's really no different than any other classes
Right.
we teach. So.
Do you do notes or outlines or anything like that?
I have my, well, what I do is, I have my, and I don't use the teacher edition, you know, it comes with the teacher edition, but I don't really like the teacher edition.
Okay.
So, I take my book, I go down to like Office Max and get it
Yeah.
punched and spiraled so that I can, and then I have just all kinds of notes. You know, Post-it notes and things I've written in here over the years,
Yeah.
from going to workshops. You probably didn't notice, but when John was up here lecturing this morning, I had this out and was making notations at different lessons. You know, things he said that I thought, oh, that's really a good analogy, or, you know, I could use that. I give each kid their own book, and it's for them to keep.
Okay.
And I encourage them to, in fact, I pass out highlighters, and they're encouraged to take notes, and I'll tell them, write this in ink, or, you know, and then I give them 2 other books too. And I got these spiraled too, but I give them the John J. Patrick's little handbook, Understanding Democracy, because it has a whole bunch of different kinds of terms in them that maybe are a little heady, you know, a little over the kids' heads sometimes. You know, like, what does liberalism? What does that mean? Well, this is something that they can, you know, they can look it up. So it's just kind of a piece of reference. And then I always also give them all a copy of the Legacy book that the center puts out. And you can order these, and I think you can get them in like groups of 500. You get a pretty
Is that
good.
a constitution?
Yeah, it's a pocket, like a pocket constitution. It's got, you know, the Declaration, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, Universal Declaration, important court cases, just a whole bunch of different important writings in here.
I do that one. I got a good deal on, it was from the ACLU, I think. But
Yeah.
a whole big box for
Mhm.
a few bucks.
Yeah, you can, well,
Yeah.
like most things, it's about the money, you know, what you have the funds for.
So what do you budget, if you don't mind? What's your budget for this?
Well, Steve, my principal, he generally lets me, I don't ask for much, you know. I mean, some teachers order lots of stuff every year. I typically order a set of books from the center for my class, and then about every 7 or 8 years, I'll order a new box of each of these. And then I spend a considerable amount of my own money on, because all the books in here, with the exception of the textbooks, are mine. I've spent my own money on those over the years. But I've been teaching for 25 years, so I've got quite a, and I've got a lot of things donated too. This whole set of books, I got this from the library is going to get rid of them.
Okay.
And they're all leather bound books. I mean, expensive, but So I rescued those.
It's a good idea. I should bring in my books and, you know. there's
Yeah, I
people
mean,
that
I,
like
you know,
them.
I have them at home, and,
Yeah.
you know, so I started off with just like old textbooks, and then, you know, on the questions, I buy the book. If there's a quote, I buy the book. I just
Okay.
buy it out of my own pocket on Amazon,
Yeah.
so that I have it, because I've run into it enough times where they'll take a quote out of a book, but they take the quote out of context, and generally it means, sometimes it doesn't mean in the way they're using it
Sure.
in the questions. Not that I don't trust Bob Lemming, but I always find it's a good idea to try to find that information within there,
Yeah.
so.
What's your guys' opinion of this program? I mean, as far as from beginning to end, have you had Mr. Gaines
I think
all through
it's-
high school and?
No, this is the first year I've had him. I love the class. I think it's awesome. It's a lot of fun. Obviously, we get to go to DC, which is pretty
Yeah,
cool.
yeah.
But just like the class, I guess I like politics and stuff.
Mhm.
So I think it's really cool, like, to get to study it.
Mhm.
And I had a lot of fun. I like the class a lot.
And definitely has built your knowledge.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Politically, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, I think most high school kids going in, especially your young freshman,
Mhm.
sophomore kids, really are not that
No.
politically savvy.
Yeah.
So.
So I think the class is great.
I think it does all the, you know, when they talk about 21st century skills that kids need, I just think one of the great things about the program is it does that.
Higher level thinking.
Well, that, but I mean, research skills, writing skills, speaking skills, working as a part of a group, you know, just all those things that are so important for kids to be successful at the next level, I think, are embodied in the program. And then something that I've tried to do in Spearfish with, you know, sort of mixed results is, and mostly this is because I see so much success with these programs from colleagues that I know from other states, is trying to develop like a district program. So trying to get the middle school to do a little bit more with civic education, trying to get the elementary schools to do a little bit more with civic education. And we haven't had interaction this year, but typically, and it depends, you know, when you go to nationals, it's a lot of work, raising money and studying and getting ready. But we try to do some work with the lower grades too throughout the year. And, you know, we have a fifth grade teacher, Corey Engelhardt, that does this with her fifth graders.
Oh, wow.
And it's just spectacular to watch.
Wow.
I mean, and those kids will get dressed up, those little kids will have little jackets and ties and dresses, and we get community members, you know, city council, mayor, school board members, whatever, come in and watch that. And you know, you got these little fifth graders who are up there talking about judicial review, and you know,
Wow.
I'm just blown away by how much more our students learn. You know, you constantly hear about the iffy state of American education, not from my perspective. Not from my perspective, you know.
When you always tell us that we probably know more about government than most adults.
Yeah, they do.
Absolutely.
They will, you know,
Absolutely.
yeah. But it is a lot of work.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's a certain commitment that taking on the program entails.
Mm-hmm.
I would
But
like,
you know, you can do a showcase level within your own school or within your community, or be part of the larger state competition, or I mean, I think there's benefit across the spectrum there.
Absolutely.
That's the part of the beauty of the program. You can use it as much or as little. You don't have to do all 6 units. You know, I mean, I think our 8th graders, you know, they typically only use the units that fit in with their course of study of American history. And we had that conversation with John earlier, that it's still kind of the history-centered curriculum with social studies, but I'd like to see that change.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would like to do more with the competition, but the issue I'm having is it's a semester-long course.
Mhm.
So, like when we did the competition, the students weren't actually in government at the time. So like we did the thing in class and I had them do it as the final.
What class was it?
It was my government class
Your
that
government
I took down there, and I only took,
Um,
I really couldn't make the whole class go because there was no way to enforce that, like, people would show up and be prepared and put into it. I didn't want to bring people that wouldn't be there, but, I mean, maybe just doing it a little bit at the local level will generate more interest and, you know.
Well, I did a panel with some eighth graders, and I had the high school government teacher be a judge. He came down, and then my high school principal, and then a paraprofessional that we had. And after it was over, my principal, he was so impressed. He thought it was so cool, and he said to the high school teacher, "You should be doing this in your high school class." But he hasn't.
Which one is that?
Sean.
Because Wes
I've been on
wants
him
to
for
stay
2
in.
years.
Yeah.
I approached him last year and he sounded interested, and then his
Mhm.
summer got busy. And
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, he is very busy.
Yeah, well, it is.
In some
it takes
schools,
a-
I'll just be brutally honest, the social studies teacher is your coaching position.
Yep.
It shouldn't be that way, but in a lot of,
It is.
it's not that you can't do both,
It
but they're
is.
looking for a coach first, and anything that you can do in the classroom is gravy.
It is, it's
Yeah.
a lot of, it's just a lot of commitment when you're coaching and
Yeah.
classroom,
Yeah.
yeah.
Maybe getting more people involved, that's a good idea if I have the principal in there and they see what the program is.
Yeah.
Tell them, okay, we can be doing this at the state level, taking the full team, and, you know, I didn't get it this year. I tried to get a We the People so that I could have a class. So it's either bring my class that's 3 weeks into the semester, or bring students who are 3 weeks into some other class. You know, they were good students that I brought. I thought they did a good job, considering how poorly I prepared them for it.
That's kind of what I did. It was part of the US history class, and I said, "You 8 kids,
Yeah.
come out in the hallway with me." So I gave them a little 15-minute tutorial. This is this is what it is. These are your questions.
Yeah.
Here's a resource. Find other resources, and I'll
Yeah.
meet with you in 3 days. That's kind of how I did it.
I will try to do that.
Matt, you should talk to Dan Lakeville,
Okay,
your superintendent.
yeah.
This guy in this picture here with me.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah, Dan was I don't know if you knew that, but he was the principal here before he went up to lead.
I didn't know that.
He came with me to Washington DC in
Oh.
2005.
Okay,
So he knows all about it.
I'll have to talk to him about.
Yeah, go hire him.
Is your We the People course a 1-year class?
Yeah.
See, that's what I need is 1 full year. Because it's one semester, unless it's perfectly timed,
Mhm.
they've already moved on to another
Yeah.
class. And, yeah, that'd be,
Where did it come to you? Who was doing it?
Well, Lennis Larson, who's a retired teacher here, started the program.
Oh.
Spearfish, I think, is the only school in the state that has participated in the program every year.
And it's
And
25
it was
plus?
because of him.
Okay.
He started it and did it. He did it up until about 3 or 4 years before he retired, and then handed it off to me.
Okay.
And I went, I don't know, I just loved it. I went to a couple of workshops, and I went to the Jackson Hole Institute like you guys, and you know, started meeting people and talking. And then when I got into the competition and got my kids ready, and I was able to, you know, I think community involvement is important. You know, it's kind of it's just kind of developed into a point of school pride. You know, some schools are wrestling schools, and some schools are known for their, you know, football team, or perhaps their debate program, and you know, I feel like Spearfish is known for our debate program too. And I don't think that's an accident that we've had a really good debate program and a good We the People program. I think those two are quite, you know, complementary, so,
Doing the same thing.
yeah.
So is this a separate class, or is it part of your AP? We the People?
No,
We the
this
People
is an AP, no.
It's not?
It's not an AP class.
Separate,
No.
okay.
No, it's a, basically, it's a 2-semester elective, but it covers the US government requirement. But actually, what I'm asking is for these kids to give up another block of time, forego maybe another class to have the commitment to be in this room.
Got it.
And as you pointed out, it's a money issue.
Yeah.
Because I could be teaching another class besides, you know, this one, the second semester, and a lot of districts either don't have the money or don't have the will to do it. And we've just been really fortunate here, I guess, that our guys are willing to say, we're gonna throw enough money at this to make this happen, because it's important.
Your success
Yeah.
continues to make it grow, for sure.
I just wanna show people like why they should, you have to convince the counselor that's scheduling things, you know, why should they take an extra semester of government when they don't need to?
Yeah.
They only need to take one, and, you know, the more information I can, you know, get, and, you know.
And this is just seniors, right?
Yeah.
You just have seniors doing,
So,
and the 5th graders.
so I'm gonna ask you guys, so, did it improve your research skills, your presentation skills, your writing skills? How would you judge, like, taking this class? Has it helped you, or?
I'd say it's helped me quite a bit with speaking in front of people. I mean, I know I got all red-faced, but I just, it's better.
Well, but that is such an issue that it is a real problem for a lot of students, is being able to speak.
Well, you?
I also agree. I'm also in debate, so like research and public speaking, like I really like it, and the class also like helped that. It was like similar to debate, like Mr. Ganey was saying, so I definitely enjoyed it, and it definitely helped.
So as a team of 4, how did you guys divvy up the work, or did like one person do all the writing, and then, or did you kind of, how did you prepare for these round of questions?
I think it definitely depends like who's in your group. For us, we usually just like end up talking a lot about the topic and our different opinions on it, like taking notes and like kind of outline as we go. And then Eli and I, another member who's not here, end up usually writing it, and then we go over and edit it together. So I guess it depends how your work group or your group works together.
So you were able to identify strengths within the group, and
I
then
think so.
capitalize off that?
Well, and I'm very careful to tell them that, you know, I need 4 experts on 3 questions, not 1 expert on 1 question, and then another you as an expert on it, because people get sick, or, you know, I mean, you know, you have to all, so, and see, in that sense, I think it really helps like build like teamwork, and, you know, you support one another, and you know, I have to tell them you have to overcome the innate desire. I think, you know, when you're in a round of competition and you get a question from a judge, which will often be directed at one of the particular students, you know, if you see your teammate is like struggling or floundering or having trouble, don't sit there and look down and think to yourself, oh God, I'm glad they didn't ask me that. You know, you gotta help them. So in that sense, it kind of builds that teamwork, you know, and that is something that I really notice a lot through the school year. You know, the first time they do something like that, I kind of get a little bit of that, but I notice the closer we get to the end of the year, the quicker they are to jump to each other's defense or to build on each other's arguments. You know, they'll get a particular question from a judge in competition, and they'll start complimenting each other's answers. I don't mean saying, you know, what a great job, but building off of, you know, or maybe showing a contrast to it. But that, a lot of that stuff comes with time. And I do tell the kids that end up in the class that, you know, you need to be prepared to, you're gonna be pretty chummy with the other people that are in your unit, and you will meet outside of school, probably at each other's homes, and you know, so.
And you really just educate each other as you go. That's kind of how I set up with the 8th graders. You know, assign them each topic or issue to research, but then they have to come together and basically teach their information to each other. So everybody was knowledgeable and everything. You know. Have you had that kid that just can't speak? They just freeze up and can't speak?
Our group's fine, yeah.
No.
We're good.
I have,
Have it.
yeah, every once in a while I'll get, you know, in fact, I've had kids that are like, you know, hesitant to sign up. Well, you know, I don't like talking in front of people. But I'll tell them, you know, this could be good for you.
Mhm.
You know, sort of the Teddy Roosevelt approach to, you know, take your fears head on kind of a thing, you know.
Give a job interview. I think of kids giving
Yeah.
job interviews.
So if you had the student that at the beginning, like the hesitation, and then by the like full blossom into, I mean, have you seen that where it's
Oh, yeah.
just like, holy smokes?
Yeah, I have. See, and then our seniors are also required to do senior presentations. So they get, I mean, I think if you're in debate,
Yeah.
like Hannah, and then you're in this class, your senior presentation rolls around. You know, it's just
Yeah.
not a big deal. And other kids are just shaking over the fact that they've got to stand up in front of people and present. It is just not a big deal for kids that have been in this class, especially when they've been in debate too. But so yeah, Mr. Tisdall's right. He, yeah, I think he's one of the ones I think that maybe was a little more quiet than some of the other kids, but you heard him. He does great.
Well, it always helps when you know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
No more than the people you're talking to.
That's true, yeah.
Especially my.
Which is the part that makes like the national competition so kind of.
Oh, yeah.
Because you know those judges are going to be well versed. So.
Yeah.
But spend a lot of time researching it and preparing. You know, you're anxious to show what you know. So.
Is there anything that you would, if you could give advice to people putting the curriculum together, is there any advice that you would give them, like things you would do different, or do you just?
Not really.
Okay.
He's got the class pretty well down. Yeah. Yes.
He prepared you enough with his lesson plans?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Of course, I put you in the hot seat when he's sitting here. But.
Yeah.
So
Should
when you
leave
get
the
to
room.
the end of after the paper's written and all the research is done, then how do you just spend the last week or two just going over potential questions over and over and over? And
Yeah.
over?
Like this next week, I'll probably pair my units up with one another,
Mhm.
and I'll just have them present back and forth. Like Unit 6 will present to Unit 5, and they'll do one question, and then they'll switch, and the other, you know.
That's good.
Yeah. But it's just, you know, it's such a busy time of year too, because kids are, you know, applying to colleges and going for visits, and then if they're in track, and if they're in drama, and if they're, you know, I mean, it's,
So talk about the Wednesday night sessions that you have. How often do you do those? Like the other night when I came.
oh, our practice rounds, yeah. I get community members to come in, and we do almost like a mock competition. And each of the units presents, and I do those in half-hour segments. So, because you got to get people willing to come in for a 3-hour chunk of time. But then we'll roll through each of the units, and the kids will present their questions, and then they get grilled with follow-up and suggestions and so on. So that's really where your community involvement, you know, comes in.
How many of those practice rounds do you do?
We do one for each question, so I do 3 in preparation for state, and then if we win at state, I do 3 in preparation for nationals.
So when you get to that national level, what do you see the difference between that first place team as opposed to the 10th place?
A lot of it's money.
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, we did several fundraisers. We sold beef jerky. We did things at restaurants, Perkins and Lucky 13, and what else do we do?
Smetzels.
We sold smensels,
We
which
have a
are
road duck
smelly
race.
pencils.
Oh,
Made $1,000 doing that.
are you kidding?
The little kids love them.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, we had a near riot at Creekside. But I'm joking around about that. But we have to do a lot of outside activity to raise the money to compete at nationals, and a lot of the schools that we're competing against
Private school.
don't.
Go.
Like the kind of the thing that I shared this with the kids, but and I can't remember whether it's Grant High School or Lincoln High School, but it's one of the teams from Portland. Oregon has a really strong We the People program, and I think it's Grant High School brings the team that's competing and the kids for next year's team who've already been chosen, so they can
Wow.
see what it's like. Now that is not an institution that is worried about money, you know. In some places,
Riding that yellow bus.
the Washington State, we traveled around with Washington one year, and I asked the teacher, you know, what'd you guys do for fundraising? She's like, fundraising for what? And I'm like, well, how did you pay? Oh, well, she said our booster club took care of it. And I said, your booster club pays for, and she said, well, we have an academic booster club. But again, that's a big, you know.
Wealthy alumni.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's unfortunate, but, you know, and that was one of the things about them cutting the funding for this. Because it used to make it doable for, now I'm just lucky because we get lots of community support, and you know, I got money from Optimist Lions and Rotary and Zonta and all of them, you know. But well,
So a lot of your time together is selling pencils.
Sometimes.
it was $40,000
Oh.
for the kids. $40,176. That's how much it costs.
How many do you take? How many kids?
24. So, but all that aside, I still say the curriculum is really good, and that simulated congressional hearing, you know, for the culminating activity. First time I heard about that format, I was like, what? How's that gonna work, you know? But it just really works good, you know?
Just like when I was in high school, research was who wants to do
Yeah.
research. And it wasn't until I went to college and I actually got to really get into it that I started to enjoy it. So I could see how like seniors might actually enjoy.
Well, I think it's different than other classes.
Right. That's what
You know,
it gives you that ability to make finding out new information more fun.
Right. Yeah, that's key. And my principal has enough trust in me and the kids that you know, when we're in the text and going through the lessons, we meet in here. But typically the kids will come in, I'll take roll. We may spend a little bit of time talking about current events and how that folds in with some of our unit issues. To spend a little time talking about fundraisers and that kind of stuff and what to expect. And then I cut them loose and they scatter. I have them in different locations throughout the building. A couple of units are in the library. One's down here in the DDN room, one's in the counseling office, one's in the, yeah. Well, that's what, yeah, a lot of teachers are like, wow, you trust them to, you
Yeah.
know, but yeah, they do.
Oh, there's some-
These guys stay in here, cause I gotta keep an eye on Unit 6, cause they're a little.
I should look at Unit 5.
Yeah. Yeah.
Their research though is, it's outcome based, it's about your performance in the end.
Yeah.
So you have to be interested in it. And-
Well, yeah, you know, I told them before, so I'm not gonna be sitting up there with you.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be in the audience and you can
Yeah.
look at me with as wide eyes as you want, and I can't help you. You know, you're gonna have to answer the questions yourself, so they take it serious then,
Yeah.
so.
Is there some questions somewhere, just so that, I think the more practice you get answering questions, they don't have to be the ones you're gonna get. But is there some kind of a resource that they have with the book where they have,
Like follow-up questions?
yeah, like some general follow-up questions, even if they're for different, I just think the more you practice you get, the better.
Yeah.
Generalized
Agreed.
follow-up questions.
So,
Your jump drive should have. a-
Well, I know that for like this district and state competition, I'm not sure about the national level,
Yeah.
but I know there are suggested follow-ups. I don't have access as a teacher. I think
Yeah.
that's the kind of information that only Wes is.
Yeah.
and I could probably get like some past, I'll see if I can dig up some past history of suggested
The
questions.
jump drive has them, but it's like 189 pages,
Mhm.
Yeah.
so it was a
That's
lot
not
of.
enough.
I'd heard complaint from from Idaho that jump drive is really hard to find stuff.
Oh, well, there's so much on it.
Yeah.
Troy got grilled at dinner one night by Holly. Just ripped.
Oh,
I
really?
can't find nothing. Have you ever indexed this thing? It was funny. It was hilarious. But anyway, I'll see what I can come up with. And if, you know, also, who has the jump drive that I could, because I don't have it.
I have it in my car, I think.
Is it something I could borrow from you and give back? Because,
You want me to go get it now?
I'm
not right now, but.
I'm not sure I have it.
Well, didn't you get it in Idaho? I mean, in Wyoming?
I have one. We all got one.
Yeah, everybody got it, except for
There was
me.
a lot of
It's-
stuff.
Because I was 2 days late.
Yeah.
Anyway,
It's a
Yeah,
flip one?
like flips around. It's silver and black.
That's
there'll be
right.
another one this year too. What?
You were hiking, weren't you? Or
I
were
was
you
at
on
an
a trip?
Adele
Who was
concert.
it, Adele?
Oh, you went to Dell, that's right.
That's right,
That's
so,
right, you said.
Front row seat, right?
huh?
Wasn't it a front row seat?
Pretty close, not front row, but I was pretty close. I was closer than I am to them. It was pretty awesome too. But I asked Troy for it and he said, I don't have any more.
Oh, is this it?
Yep.
Can I borrow it?
Oh, maybe
Yeah.
it's black.
Obviously, you didn't even know you had it. I will give it back to you.
I'm a creature of habit, you know, I do the same thing every. Yeah. I didn't realize there was 186 pages.
Yeah,
of
there's a lot.
And it would help if they were in
There's-
order of units, like I printed out one copy for myself, and then I went to groups and emailed them the link, but it was like out of order.
Oh.
So I was writing by hand off to the side, like Unit 6, you might look at this question, Unit 1.
Mm.
It was like not even in order.
That'd take about 2-3 days in the summer to cut and paste and organize that all.
Not to complain, it was nice to give us, of them to give us questions at all.
Mhm.
I'm not complaining about that, like, I sat there, did no work, and, they gave me questions, so it was nice of them, but.
But I know I have like this year's state competition suggested follow-up, because there's people like me that, you know, even though I was a poli-sci minor, I'm not prepared to ask follow-up, because I mean, you guys blow people out of the water with your answers. So, you know, those follow-up questions are kind of nice to have, so. You guys do well. I mean, and you know, even your school, with the little bit of experience or time that they had, impressive. I mean, that's
For no better than I prepared them, they did a really good job. Next year, I'm gonna spend more time on the questions. We ended up doing like from mid-quarter to the end. Next time, I'm gonna start at quarter. and they'll have half the year to do it.
Well, that's kind of what happened to us in Jackson Hole. We spent all week writing our paper
Mhm.
and reading the paper, and then the questions came, and that was a little more.
Yeah, we did this in a week, so.
Yeah, we did. It wasn't as good as yours.
You guys did awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, I promised you guys an hour.
Oh.
I think it's been an hour, so.
Well, thank you so much for
Yeah, thank you
sacrificing that
guys
part of your
very
Saturday.
much.
Yeah.
Oh.
Good luck.
And if I don't see you, good luck in DC.
Thank you.
There's some particularly luscious looking ones over here.
So who shaves Pat's head when you guys get back?
Class effort.
Yeah, I didn't tell these guys that as an added incentive, I have this standing rule that if my students win anything at nationals, any kind of a national award, they get to take my hair off at senior night on stage in front of God and the whole world. So
All right.
that always adds a little extra motivation when they find out they can make me look like Butterbean. So
All right, thank you.
thanks for
See
coming
you
in, guys.
guys.